Well, that was awesome. Hello and welcome to CBS Sports HQ, delivered by Papa John's. New grilled buffalo chicken papadilla, just $6. Alabama and Florida in an absolute barn burner in the SEC championship. Here's how it went down. Number 1 Alabama looking to complete a perfect regular season and be undefeated through the SEC title game. Bama and Florida meeting for the 10th time in SEC championship game history. Alabama leads the series 5-4. Gators the only team to beat Bama in an SEC championship game. Alabama's first drive, Najee Harris in for 6. His 43rd career rushing touchdown, most in Alabama history. Then Florida answers right back. Ensuing possession, Kyle Trask, Darius Toney, 51-yard scoring strike. We're tied at 7. Trask extends Florida's school record 41st touchdown pass of the season. Ensuing possession, wild play here. Mac Jones fires over the middle. Trey Dean rips the ball to Miller Forrestal's hands, but Dean gets lit up on the return by John Mechie III. Ball's out. DeVonta Smith recovers. I mean, goodness gracious. We're going to be looking at this hit for years to come. That was a thing of beauty. Next play. Jones to DeVonta Smith, 31-yard touchdown. 16th receiving touchdown. Ties the Alabama single-season record set by Amari Cooper. How wide open was he on that? I mean, how wide open? Jones, the favorite to win the Heisman, coming in at -210. Smith, second best odds to win at +250. Kyle Trask, third best odds at +350. Najee Harris scored his 23rd touchdown of the season on Alabama's opening drive. All those have been rushing. Then right there, a little spin move, his 24th touchdown of the season, first receiving touchdown. How about another? Under 15 seconds left in the half. Jones to Harris, 25-yard touchdown. 35 points is an SEC record for points in a half. 35-17. Najee Harris, have yourself a first half, kid. 20 total touches, 141 total yards, 4 total touchdowns. Mac Jones also 4 touchdown passes in the first half for the second time this season. Now, Florida strikes first. They get the ball to start the second half. 4th play of the drive, Trask to Trayvon Grimes, 50-yard touchdown. It's a 35-24 game. Late third quarter, Gators have the ball. Naquan Wright, handoff, he's in for the touchdown. Florida down 4, 35-31. Gators outscored Bama 14-0 in the third quarter. Early fourth, Najee Harris takes the handoff, hurdles a defender. Gainer of 19. Najee Harris get up and hurdles a dude. Later in the drive, first and goal, Najee Harris in for the touchdown. Bama up 42-31. 5th touchdown of the game, ties in. That's an SEC championship game record. Second time scoring 5 TDs in his career. Just over 5 minutes left. Jones hits DeVonta Smith, who had a ridiculous day. Just as Najee Harris. Career high 15 catches, 184 yards, 2 TDs. Just over 2 minutes left. Trask to Kyle Pitts. The Super Swamp Brothers connect. 22-yard touchdown. 52-46 is the score. Final play of the game. Kyle Trask, we need the ball back. 16 seconds left. Kyle Trask sacked for the 5th time in the game. And they could not get another play off. It's Alabama's 5th SEC title in the past 7 years. The 7th SEC title for Alabama head coach Nick Saban. And what an absolute wild game. The 98 points is the second highest scoring game in SEC championship game history. The highest scoring a couple years ago, actually. Not too far. It was 2013. Auburn won 59-42. So that was also a barn burner game in that one. But it's 52-46 as the final. Florida 16.5. So if you took Florida in the points, you won here. Look, we were all on Alabama. Absolute transparency here. We told you to take the under. We told you to take Alabama. But Florida didn't go away. They lose by 6, and they lose out on any potential shot at making the college football playoff. Alabama, a perfect 11-0. The coach who got in there, Nick Saban, speaking afterwards with Jamie Erdahl.
Coach, was that final play emblematic of how tough your defense had to be all night?
Well, I tell you what, they're a very challenging team, and we certainly didn't match up with them, and that was my concern going in. But got to give our team a lot of credit. Offense responded every time they needed to so that we could stay ahead in the game. Special teams made the plays they need to make at the end of the game. So it's a great team win. We knew it'd have to be this way. So I'm excited for our players. I'm excited for our fans. You know, it's something significant to me to win the SEC championship. Florida's got a great team, and we knew it'd be a tough game, and it's probably good for us to be in a dogfight, and we were certainly in one tonight.
You had a lot of, you didn't have a lot of challenges up until this point this season. What can you say about the way Kyle Trask pushed your defense this evening?
Well, I just think that, you know, 84-1, I mean, those two guys we couldn't guard. So it was a lot of problems. We make a play down here that would have, you know, and we're offsides on defense and undisciplined type play. But, hey, there's a lot of great plays in this game on both sides of the ball. I'm just proud of our guys because they did what they had to do to win. And, you know, Kyle Trask did a great job, and so did their receivers. And, you know, we didn't cover them very well.
Where's the appreciation for you for Mac Jones?
Well, my appreciation is for every guy on our team. These guys have worked hard all year long. It's been a tough year, a lot of disruptions. They've handled it extremely well. And to win the SEC championship is something I'm very proud of. And now I'm sure they'll get an opportunity to go to the playoffs.
Congratulations, Coach.
All right, thank you.
Yep, just locked up the #1 overall ranking in the college football playoff. You don't even, I mean, look, they're #1, okay? There's no question about it. Look at the records here that were set on Saturday. Mac Jones, 403 passing yards, 33 completions, 5 touchdowns scored by Najee Harris, and the 15 catches for DeVonta Smith, also an Alabama school record, passing Amari Cooper. This was absolute. So at this point, who's winning the Heisman for Alabama? It's either Mac Jones, Najee Harris, or DeVonta Smith. They all three might be finalists. Kyle Trask might not be a finalist for the Heisman Trophy. He might not. I mean, look, he had a heck of a season. I'm just saying, based on this game, this is wild. Mac Jones, Najee Harris, DeVonta Smith. Perhaps Mac Jones did enough in this game to secure the Heisman Trophy. Again, he came in as the favorite to win it. He tosses 5 touchdowns, throws 1 pick, 33 of 43 for 418 yards. All right, so welcome in two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and CBS Sports HQ college football analyst Chip Patterson. B-Mac, I mean, that was a game for the ages. What's your reaction to how that game played out?
Wow. I mean, first half, it was all about Alabama. We go into halftime, you know, go over the halftime notes. Felt like Florida had no shot. And then in the second half, wow, Florida just put their foot on the gas. I think they scored 29 points in the second half to make this thing extremely competitive. And we had an entertaining ball game from start to finish, I must say that. The Gators, they fought, but they just didn't have just enough. You know what I mean? They were a play or two behind, it seemed like, throughout the 4 quarters of this ball game. But an entertaining ball game. Alabama continues to show you that they're the best team in college football. They have so many different ways they can beat you. I mean, running the football, throwing the football. The defense didn't play their best game today, but they made plays when they need to make plays. You know what I mean? They played that elbow defense, bend but don't break, and gave their offense more than enough possessions to be able to put points on the scoreboard. This might be one of the more electrifying offenses that we've seen in quite some time. And I know we saw an explosive offensive performance last year from LSU, but the way how Alabama runs the football, I mean, they just dominated the line of scrimmage against any opposing defense. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything plans out. We know Alabama will have the #1 seed in the playoffs, but that first matchup, whoever they face off against, man, look out.
Big-time flashbacks to the 2013 SEC championship game. You'll remember that was Auburn in the 50s. That was Missouri in the 40s. I believe it was 59-42. But it was another game similar to this one where the SEC West champion, in this case Alabama, got in front, felt like they were never going to be stopped, but yet the SEC East champion, in this case Florida, was never going to go away. But we still go back to what B-Mac said. At halftime, we felt like Alabama was going to win this game. And so that's why we see one of the highest scoring SEC championship games since that 2013 Auburn-Missouri matchup. Where I think this is going to be different is that Auburn went on to lose to Florida State in the BCS championship game, and where Alabama, I think, is on its way to a national championship, because we saw this Crimson Tide team totally flex all of its different skills. Hakeem, you mentioned the fact that they got after Kyle Trask, sacked him 5 times. We saw a turnover machine. All they're doing is they're hunting, they're looking for interceptions, they're trying to strip the ball loose, they're trying to find fumbles even after an interception from Mac Jones. And so when I think about this Alabama team, and I stack it up even against Clemson, against Ohio State, against Notre Dame, against Texas A&M, I just come back to the fact that they've got too many ways to beat you. They can beat you with Mac Jones, they can beat you with DeVonta Smith, and even when it's John Mechie making a play in a special team situation, they're going to find ways to come up with the difference-making plays that separate Alabama from everyone else. It is a different program, and this is an iconic sort of moment for this Alabama team to be able to go through everything they went through. Nick Saban even testing positive for COVID, false positive against Georgia, then he does end up testing positive. They have found ways to overcome adversity at every turn, and I think the Crimson Tide are just really showing why they are deeper and why they are better than everybody else in college football right now.
B-Mac, does Najee Harris and DeVonta Smith even need to work out at the combine? Just show everyone this game. SEC championship record, 5 touchdowns for Najee Harris, and then DeVonta Smith, a career-high 15 catches on 18 targets for 184 and 2 TDs. He recovered that fumble on that massive hit from John Mechie III, doing a little bit of everything. Just show him this game.
I mean, you can pick almost any game throughout the course of this year, and I think scouts will be, going crazy over the tape. Najee Harris just continues to improve his stock. Clearly, I think he will be a first-round selection, probably the first running back to come off the board, depends on what happens. DeVonta Smith has been the best wide receiver in college football the entire season. And what people fail to realize, Hakeem, is that DeVonta Smith, statistically speaking, he had a better year than Judy and Ruggs from a year ago, right? And both of those guys were top 20 selected players in the first round of the NFL draft a year ago. So this is a guy that has been putting up numbers since he's pretty much been on campus, clearly over the last 3 years. He's been putting up big-time numbers, and he just continues to dominate. In a year where they lost their most explosive wide receiver in Jalen Waddle, you sometimes forget that Waddle is not in the lineup because the production has not slipped at all. The points have not slipped at all. The big plays have not slipped at all. That's because DeVonta Smith is coming through in the clutch for his offense. He's just a football player. He's just a football player. He's a football player that can really impact the football game in many different ways. It's not just about catching passes. It's not just about recovering fumbles. It's all about being able to impact the football game anytime you're on the football field. We've seen him do that via special teams. So he's just an ultimate football player, and he's going to have a bright future when it comes to the NFL.
Chip, Florida played Alabama pretty darn tough in this game. And this was a 6-point difference in terms of the final score. When you look at what Florida did against this Alabama defense, and also ultimately this is a barn burner game, there's a ton of points being scored. What concerns perhaps do you have about Alabama that Florida may have exposed?
I think that when you look at Alabama's secondary, you saw a lot of mistakes made. Josh Jobe, not only in some one-on-one matchups against Kyle Pitts, had some mistakes. He had the offsides penalty right near the goal line that was very, very costly, as it looks like Alabama might have had a turnover there that would have prevented this from being such a barn burner down to the stretch. But I still think that this is going to be something where you have to be able to present the wealth of options on the outside, the way that Florida does with the Kyle Pitts, with Kadarius Toney, with the Trevon Grimes, because Nick Saban said it with Jamie Erdahl. He said, look, they were a bad matchup for us. He was able to recognize that. Ole Miss was a little bit of a bad matchup for Alabama. How many teams that are in the college football playoff picture right now have those kind of weapons on the outside? Because, much love to the Clemson Tigers, one of the big winners on Conference Championship Saturday, but they've got Amari Rodgers, they've got Cornell Powell, and then maybe maybe you're asking a little bit more from some of those younger wide receivers to be able to step up. EJ Williams had a big day, but there's just not that many teams in the country who can provide the kind of skill position talent that Florida can to overwhelm a defense. And so Nick Saban knew going into this game, just like he knew going into the Ole Miss game, that it was going to be a little bit difficult based on the scheme and based on the talent and personnel. But I do think that as we look ahead towards Alabama moving forward in the college football playoff, there are not that many teams that have what Florida has. And so therefore, I do think that Alabama will be able to put in a game plan so they are not exposed. And again, either way, they were able to get after the quarterback. They're able to get some turnovers, and they're able to win the game. And Nick Saban's given up on trying to win in the old school fashion. He knows that. But as long as he gets to win, he's going to be happy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Chip. I think personnel-wise, Kyle Pitts is one of the best pass catchers in college football. I think he probably would be a top 10 selected player in the NFL draft. Tony is an outstanding player as well. I think he will have a bright NFL future. So most teams offensively don't have the star power, the pro-like potential players on the offense to be able to have matchups in their favor against Alabama. But scheme-wise, they did some things that I think you can be successful against Alabama in lining up your best pass catchers in the slot. You go back to a year ago, you look at the LSU game when they played Alabama. What did LSU do a lot? When they went their empty formation, no backs in the backfield, all wide receivers, they put their best pass catchers in the slot. And usually when you do that, those said pass catchers are working against either safeties, nickels, or dimes. And in tonight's matchup against Florida, we consistently saw Tony and Pitts lining up against freshman players in the secondary from Alabama and not being able to utilize guys like Surtain, who's the best cover guy in college football because he's always slated to be outside on the edge. So the scheme-wise, there could be an opportunity for any opposing offense to have success in the passing game by just putting your best pass catchers in the slot and forcing their nickel and their dime or their star player to cover. And we saw success from Florida in doing so when they put their best pass catchers, Tony and Pitts, in the slot, and where they were able to exploit those matchups. But outside of that, just from the personnel, this was probably the best offense. And I said this going into the game, that this would probably be the best offense that Alabama's faced, just from the quarterback potential, how consistent he's played, and also having stars at the pass catching positions, specifically in Pitts.
Yeah, this was the closest game of the season for Alabama, a 6-point difference. They took everything that Florida threw at them. They outlast the Gators to win the SEC championship. They're 5th in the last 7 years. BMAC, Chip, appreciate the insight here on CBS Sports HQ. What a game it was. And again, I'm not sure outside of Clemson who's going to beat this team. You know how we always joke about, oh, Alabama could go to the NFL and beat one of the lower tiered teams. The joke was always they could beat the Browns. They're not beating the Browns now, but this team is ridiculous. And the number of records they set in this game is eye-popping. Mac Jones, 418 passing yards, 33 completions. Najee Harris, 5 touchdowns scored. And DeVonta Smith, 15 catches in this game, also an Alabama school record. All right, back out to Atlanta. Welcome to SEC on CBS lead analyst Gary Danielson, a friend of CBS Sports HQ indeed. Gary, great to have you here post-game. Great on the call as always. What was your reaction calling this game? How epic it was? It turned out to be a barn burner there in Atlanta.
It was, and I thought at half the mistake that Florida made in giving Alabama just enough time to go down and score again was really going to be the difference in the game. Now, it ended up being the difference, but maybe not quite as much because the second half was a game in its own, really. And the way Florida caught fire scoring and the way they got some stops, I didn't know if they were going to stop Alabama once in this football game. So once they got a few stops, you could see Alabama seriously go, this is going to be a game right to the end, and it was.
It was absolutely impressive what we saw from Najee Harris, Mac Jones, DeVonta Smith. What was also impressive was the clean crunching hit in the first quarter by John Mechie III on Trey Dean III. What was your reaction when you saw that play? A very clean hit, and then the fact that DeVonta Smith recovers the football, the awareness all in that play.
Yeah. It was a big play. Florida needed a couple of plays to win the football game. They needed a turnover, a fumble recovery, a pick six, and they had a play. They had a stop. And you can't blame Trey Dean. He's running. You don't usually get hit like that on an interception. And John Mechie just laid him out and hit him right on the football. It was, as you said, a clean hit. And Alabama goes right in and scores after that. That was a big part of this football game.
You called several Alabama games this season. They are 11-0 heading to the college football playoff, likely the #1 seed. Not even likely. They are the #1 seed going into the college football playoff. How would you describe their season up to this point?
I think a little bit of everything. First of all, they grew on defense, but as you watch this game, I think teams across the country will go, okay, we knew, and we now know for sure they're good on offense. But, they're like everybody else. If you have a quarterback and a couple of receivers in college football, you're going to score some points. So I think people will watch this game and put a lot of respect for Alabama. Say, well, they're real. They deserve #1. But there is a path. There's a path. We can move the ball against these guys. It won't be easy. You got to have a special player like Pitts and Kadarius Toney, and you got to have a quarterback. But there is a path, and that'll make it fun to watch as Alabama enters the playoffs and plays the good teams at the end of the year here.
Gary, appreciate the insight here on CBS Sports HQ. Heck of a season on CBS for you as well. Thank you again for your insight and for taking time here for us on HQ.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Heisman worthy. I guess pick a guy. All four of these guys had great games. Mac Jones, these are the final numbers here right now. 32 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. DeVonta Smith, 17 receiving touchdowns, second most in the nation, leads the nation in receiving yards. Kyle Trask, 43 touchdowns, a single season Florida record. You can make the argument that he should win the Heisman. You could make the argument that Najee Harris should win the Heisman. Most touchdowns in FBS this season. Most career rushing touchdowns in Alabama history. Now, of course, that doesn't impact his season, but Najee Harris had himself a historic game in the SEC Championship. Coming up, our coverage of the SEC Championship game just getting started. Who delivered when it mattered most? You're watching CBS Sports HQ, delivered by Papa John's.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.